Every spring, thousands of fishermen receive fines. These
Spring
are not
fines? This is
poachers,
ridiculous.
not people with
I'm fishing
nets or
anyway.
electric rods. Ordinary enthusiasts with spinning rods, float rods, or boats simply did not know the rules. Or they knew them, but not fully. Or they thought they were a special case. This year, the spawning ban is already in effect or is about to begin, depending on your region. Today we will analyze everything completely. What is prohibited? What is allowed? What the fines are? Which regions are affected? What the deadlines are? And most importantly, the top misconceptions because of which fishermen lose money and gear every spring. Let's start with the main question. Why is this ban needed at all? The answer is simple. Biology. In the spring, fish spawn. At this moment, they are maximally vulnerable. They are concentrated in shallow water, on spawning grounds. They are busy laying eggs and do not move away from danger as quickly as in normal times. If intensive fishing is carried out during this period, the population in an entire body of water can be undermined in just a few seasons. This is not a theory. This has happened on specific rivers and lakes in Russia when control weakened. A body of water where there was good fishing 20 years ago turned into an empty pond. The spawning ban is not a whim of officials. It is a mechanism that allows fish to reproduce and allows us to catch them in the following years. Each female pike weighing 3 kilo carries from 40,000 to 100,000 eggs. A large female bream carries up to 300,000, and a large carp up to 1.5 million. If you catch this female right before spawning, all this offspring disappears. Multiply this by thousands of fishermen and poachers, and it is clear why the ban is necessary. Now, let's discuss how the spawning ban is structured in Russia. Here is the first important point that not everyone understands. There is no single spawning ban for the whole of Russia. The country is divided into 8 fishery basins: Volga-Caspian, Azov-Black Sea, West Siberian, East Siberian, Baikal, Far Eastern, Western, and Northern. Each basin has its own fishing rules, its own ban periods, and its own lists of restrictions. This means that the ban periods in the Moscow region, on the lower Volga, in Karelia, and in Siberia are different, sometimes very different. Therefore, the first thing to do every spring is to check the current rules for your specific region. The most reliable source is the official website of Rosrybolovstvo and the websites of regional administrations of Rosrybolovstvo. Do not rely on fishing forums or advice from acquaintances. Check official documents, because rules can change every year. The general picture for the 2026 deadlines is as follows. Central Russia, the Moscow region, and neighboring regions have a spawning ban from April 1st to June 10th. Southern regions, such as the Krasnodar territory and Rostov region, are from April 1st to May 31. Northern regions last until June 15th and later. The lower Volga and Astrakhan region have separate, complex rules with many nuances for specific water bodies and fish species. The general guideline for most regions of central Russia is from April 1st to June 10th, lasting over 2 months. Now, let's talk about what specifically is prohibited. This is the most important part. First and foremost, fishing from watercraft. This means any fishing from a boat, catamaran, inflatable mattress, or while standing in the water in waders is prohibited during the spawning period everywhere, without exception, except for specially designated zones that are marked separately in each region. Second, spinning. Spinning during the spawning ban is allowed only from the shore and only outside spawning zones. If a body of water or its section is declared a spawning zone, spinning is completely prohibited there. Many fishermen do not know this and think that spinning from the shore is always allowed. It is not. Third, fishing in spawning zones and on spawning grounds. Spawning zones are designated in the fishing rules for each basin. Any fishing is prohibited there during the ban period, regardless of the gear or method. Fourth, things that are prohibited year-round, not just during spawning. Nets are prohibited for recreational fishing everywhere, except for certain regions of the North, Siberia, and the Far East, where they are allowed after mandatory registration. Electric rods are absolutely and completely prohibited. This is not an administrative violation, it is a criminal offense. Explosives, poisons, and chemical substances are similarly banned. Harpoons are also prohibited. Write in the comments if you knew all these rules before watching this video, or if something was a discovery for you. Now, let's look at what is allowed during the spawning ban period. Fishing from the shore is allowed. You may use one float or bottom rod with no more than 2 hooks. This is permitted during daylight hours. Night fishing during the spawning period is questionable in most regions, so it is better to clarify. An important condition is that you must not be in a spawning zone. The catch limit is no more than 5 kilos per person per day for most regions. If you catch a single fish weighing more than 5 kilos, that one fish can be taken over the limit. This rule applies throughout central Russia. You can catch crucian carp, bream, roach, and perch, provided they are not in a spawning zone at the moment of fishing. For specific bans on specific species during specific dates, consult the rules of your basin. Now, regarding fines, these are amounts that will make you think. The basic administrative fine for violating fishing rules is from 2,000 to 5,000 rubles, plus the confiscation of fishing gear and the catch. At first glance, this might not seem fatal, but it is only the beginning. If the violation involves damage to aquatic biological resources, and any illegal catch is considered such, compensation for damage is added according to approved rates for each fish. A pike costs several thousand rubles per piece. Zander is more expensive, and catfish even more so. If you catch 5 pikes illegally, calculate the total. For more serious violations, such as fishing in spawning zones, using prohibited gear, or causing large-scale damage, the administrative fine grows to 300,000 rubles and higher. For using electric rods, explosives, or nets in prohibited places, Criminal Article 256 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation applies, with fines up to 500,000 rubles, correctional labor, or imprisonment for up to 2 years. A separate point is confiscation. In 2026, cases of confiscating not only gear and boats, but also the vehicle used to transport the watercraft to the water have become more frequent. This is legal, and precedents already exist. In the Moscow region and several other regions, inspectors actively use drones to monitor water bodies during the spawning period. A boat on the water during the forbidden period is visible from a drone instantly. Now, let's analyze the top misconceptions and the most common mistakes made by fishermen. Misconception 1. The ban only applies to nets. No, the ban concerns fishing from a boat with any gear, fishing in spawning zones with any gear, and the use of certain gears regardless of the place and time. Misconception 2. Spinning from the shore is allowed everywhere. No, spinning from the shore is allowed only outside spawning zones. If you fish with a spinning rod from the shore opposite a designated spawning ground, you are in violation. Misconception 3. Catch and release doesn't count. It does count. The fact of illegal fishing is recorded regardless of whether you kept the fish or released it. The inspector sees the gear, the method of fishing, and the location. This is sufficient for a protocol. Misconception 4. Ignorance of the law exempts you from responsibility. It does not. This is explicitly stated in the law. Thousands of fishermen are convinced of this in practice every year. Misconception 5. If the body of water is small and deserted, no one will check. They will check. especially during the spawning period when inspections increase patrolling. As mentioned, drones make remote water bodies just as accessible for control. Misconception 6. The rules are the same throughout Russia. No, each basin has its own rules. What is allowed on the Ob may be prohibited on the Volga. Now, briefly about when each main fish species spawns. This will help you understand the logic behind the bans. Pike is the earliest, spawning at a water temperature of 3 to 6 degrees, immediately after the ice breaks. In the middle lane, this is March or early April. Therefore, the ban on pike starts the earliest. Perch spawn in April at a temperature of 7 to 8 degrees, being one of the first among white fish. Roach spawn in April, slightly later than perch. In small rivers and ponds, their spawning ends by the beginning of May. Bream spawn in May at a water temperature of 12 to 14 degrees Celsius, which is noisy and noticeable in shallow water. Zander spawn in April or May depending on the region, at a temperature of 8 to 10 degrees. Crucian, carp, and carp spawn in May or June, the latest among the main fish. This is why the ban in most regions lasts until mid-June, to allow these species to spawn. Catfish spawn in May or June at a temperature of 15–16 degrees C. Chub spawn in April or May, in the fast currents of shallows. This is why the ban is so long. Different fish spawn at different times, and a single period covers the spawning of most species. I have been fishing for many years, and every spring I see the same thing. People go out on the water during the ban because they have always done so or because a neighbor said it was okay. Then they are surprised by the protocol. One acquaintance received a fine and damage compensation totaling 70,000 rubles for several zander caught from a boat in May. This is not a horror story. It is a real story. Finally, a word on ethics rather than the law. The spawning ban is about an elementary understanding of how nature works. The fish you release in the spring will return to you in 2 to 3 years with several generations. The pike you caught and released in March represents hundreds of thousands of fry that will replenish the reservoir in the summer. This is your fishing in August of next year. A good fisherman is not the one who takes the most, but the one who understands the reservoir as a system and ensures that the system works. Let's analyze a few more important practical points that often raise questions. How do you find spawning zones in your region? The first source is the fishing rules for your basin. This is an official document listing specific water bodies or sections with the status of a spawning zone. The second source is the territorial administration of Rosrybolovstvo. Each region has its own administration with a website and phone number where you can get a specific answer for a specific body of water. The third option is signs and buoys directly on the water body. Designated spawning zones should be marked, though in practice this is not always observed. What should you do if an inspector stops you while fishing? First, do not be rude and do not run away, as this will only worsen the situation. Second, always have your documents with you. Third, if you are sure you are fishing legally, calmly explain where you are fishing and with what. If the inspector draws up a protocol, you have the right to write your own explanation. If you disagree, write "disagree" in the protocol and appeal it. Regarding fishing licenses, in Russia, recreational fishing does not require a permit on most water bodies. Fishing in public water bodies is free. Exceptions include fishing areas transferred for use where a permit is needed, and a number of particularly valuable species like sturgeon, beluga, sterlet, nelma, salmon, and taimen. Catching these without a permit is a criminal offense regardless of the season. Regarding catch limits, 5 kilos per day is the norm for most regions, but in the Moscow region, this is the total volume for the entire trip. not per day. There are also separate quantitative and size restrictions for specific species. Pike must be at least 32 cm in most regions, zander 38 cm, and bream 25 cm. If you catch one smaller than the minimum size, release it immediately. Taking undersized fish home is a violation. Regarding paid water bodies during the ban, private ponds and fish farms operate under different rules because fish are bred artificially and spawning is controlled. Therefore, in April and May, paid sites are a legal alternative. This is a real solution for those who cannot wait until June. Also, regarding movement on a boat, some regions prohibit not only fishing from a boat, but also the movement of small vessels in spawning areas. Engine noise and waves destroy eggs and scare away fish. These zones are marked with buoys. Stay away from them. To summarize, the 2026 spawning ban in central Russia runs from April 1 to June 10th. Fishing from a boat, fishing in spawning zones, and the use of nets and electric rods are prohibited. Fishing from the shore with one rod and two hooks outside spawning zones is allowed, with a 5K limit. Fines range from 2,000 rubles to criminal liability. Exact rules are on the Rozrybolovstvo website for your region. A few more points. The number of fish inspection trips increases sharply in the spring, and public inspectors join the work. In popular spots, duty can be daily, so counting on not being caught is a bad strategy. Fines for one violation can exceed the cost of several fishing seasons. The spawning ban in Russia is becoming stricter every year, with increasing fines and expanded spawning zones. This is a general trend as the state works to restore fish stocks that have dropped significantly over the last 20 years. Note the difference between recreational and commercial fishing. Industrial fishing is regulated separately by quotas. If you see nets, they might be registered nets of local residents or commercial farms. But if you see unregistered nets in central Russia, you can report them to the Rozrybolovstvo hotline. During the ban, you can visit paid water bodies, fish from the shore with permitted gear, prepare your gear for the summer, or study new places. Remember, June comes quickly, and immediately after the ban is lifted, the best bite of the year occurs. Those who waited honestly are rewarded with an excellent catch. I want to talk separately about the psychology of violations. Most people caught are not malicious poachers, but ordinary fishermen who made a wrong decision, thinking once won't hurt or everyone does it. Each of these thoughts is wrong. It is not just about the fine. Imagine a body of water you have visited for 20 years. If every spring dozens of people catch spawning fish, that fishing spot will eventually cease to exist. This is happening right now in various places in Russia. The spawning ban is a collective agreement. Everyone who observes it contributes to the result. Everyone who violates it steals from the rest. If one fisherman takes 10 pikes during spawning, he deprives the reservoir of potentially 1 million fry. If 20 fishermen do this, the math is clear. Observe the ban because you want to catch fish in 10 years and bring your children there. This is rational. To avoid suspicion, even when fishing legally, always carry your passport, know exactly where you are by checking maps of spawning zones beforehand, ensure your gear corresponds to what is permitted, and make sure your catch does not exceed the 5 kg limit. Be ready to calmly explain your actions to an inspector. The simplest rule: if you are in doubt, do not fish. It is better to lose one trip than to lose tens of thousands of rubles and your gear. If this guide helps you navigate the waters more safely and responsibly, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. We are dedicated to preserving the traditions of the water and protecting the future of our fisheries. Let's ensure the next generation can enjoy the same treasures we do. The next deep dive into fishing history and strategy will be released soon.